Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to... My throat got caught. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Welcome
The
to
84th
Joe
episode
Fortunato Hits Puberty.
Of Blueshirt Bandwidth. I'm your host, puberty-riddled Joe Fortunato, joined as always by my co-host, Eric the Beard Cone. Eric, how are you?
Past puberty, so I'm just glad you finally got there.
Are. You're fucking old.
Yeah.
Well, it took a while, but that's what
I'm
happens.
proud of you. I just want you to know I'm proud of you.
Welcome to the show. We did 2.5 minutes before there was an internet issue, so we're doing it live a second time, which is nice. We were talking, it can't even be organic now. This is the 84th episode. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining. Please leave 5 stars, a nice comment on Spotify. Do the same thing on Apple Podcasts, however you listen to us. YouTube.com/BlueshirtBanter. Facebook.com/BlueshirtBanter. BlueshirtBanter.com/BlueshirtBanter. $85 a year gets you all your ad-free access to the New York Rangers. I had a story up last week about the possibility of the New York Rangers trading for the second overall pick. I will expand on that thought this week on Friday in a Joe's Reaction of the Week. Chip posted an article about some of the love that Jeff Gordon is getting in the wider space and whether or not it's deserved. We have another My Trade Proposal Sucks, I believe, coming up. There was some expanding on whether or not something is going to happen with Vincent Trocheck. We did a roundtable of who we thought the Rangers would realistically be capable of drafting 5th overall. Pretty sure that's where we left off the start of the show 2 minutes ago. So why don't we stick there, Eric? You had some thoughts on that, so I'll just let you burst in with them because that's just what you do.
Yeah, that is what I do. Just like the Kool-Aid Man bursting through the wall here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The roundtable was kind of the combination of who you think the Rangers should pick based on how you think the 4 picks above them are going to play out. And you did have I suggested this as well following the lead that you wrote about the previous week of the Rangers should explore trading up for the 2nd overall pick. Charlie just basically wrote that he thinks the Rangers should trade up for the 2nd overall pick. There does seem to be some smoke around that the San Jose Sharks are, of course, while I'm sure, as I wrote, they would love to have another high-end forward, their needs really are on defense. And while there is something to be said for the, going all Kevin Costner in draft day and just, pick Chase Reed no matter what, you're in some way losing some value in that pick if the consensus number 2 guy you're going to overlook, but you're not going to get anything else because you could extract something from Vancouver at 3 or from Chicago at 4 or from the Rangers at 5 if they wanted to move up to take the guy that everybody agrees is the consensus 2nd overall pick. So most of us landed on Carson Carels. For me, I'll speak for myself here. That is mostly just I really don't want Keaton Verhoeff. If not only for the I don't want to have to endure of course, the Rangers took him because he can't skate stuff. Although I think we should say he is, while maybe not the greatest skater, there are reasons he is still regarded as one of the best defensive prospects in the draft. So I don't think we should completely sideline that. But Carls just seems like the best combination of the things the Rangers need at the position that we think that they will be drafting at, assuming they don't trade up for that 2nd overall pick. But, we could get into this.
I was going to say, are we doing this now? I could do it now, or we could do it later.
Why don't we do the house cleaning first and housekeeping first, and then we will dive back into it.
We have to clean this house.
It is the 84th episode. There are 2 Rangers who have worn 84. One should be very obvious to you. The other, I will be deeply impressed if you get.
I put the one that the episode is potentially going to be named after in the potential trade for the 2nd overall pick in my story that is going to go live on Friday. It is Adam Edstrom. This is the Adam Edstrom episode. I feel like I know who this is because it's such a weird number.
Yeah.
Is the last name Locke?
Wow, Corey Locke.
Is it Corey Locke? Okay.
It's Corey Locke, who played 3 games for the Rangers in the 2009-2010 season. He did nothing while he was playing those 3 games, but he did play them and wore 84.
It is possible that that is a memory from when we looked through everything, and I was just going through some of the
Sure.
weird numbers, but I'm actually impressed at myself for remembering the last name. So either way,
No,
I've won this
I can
battle.
only conclude there that because you remembered Corey Locke, like at some point you're going to forget one of your kids' names because you have remembered Corey Locke and replaced that brain capacity with the name Corey Locke.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows?
Nobody
why
knows what's going to
things are
happen
the way that they are. But
and the rest of
we should
our
probably
house
do Charlie,
cleaning,
right?
Yep. Is the podcast Ombudsman Report for Blueshirt Bandwidth, episode 83, where, of course, each week Charlie listens to the podcast and corrects the record on anything that Joe and I get wrong. Starting with episode 83. Although he never played in an NHL game, Ryder Korzak wore number 83 for the New York Rangers during the 2023 and 2024 preseasons. So, retroactively, last episode was the Ryder Korzak episode, I suppose. Why is Toronto up here? During the drawing for the second overall pick, Joe asked why Toronto was up there again. Even though Toronto had already won the first overall pick, their lottery ball combinations still existed for the drawing. Had Toronto, quote, won the second drawing, then they would have redrawn the second pick. So there you go. The Dallas pick. Eric and Joe were asking how high the Dallas Stars draft pick that the Rangers will receive could be. In the NHL draft, the final 4 picks of the first round are reserved for the teams that lose in the conference finals, lose in the Stanley Cup final, and win the Stanley Cup. That's 29 through 32. Picks 17 through 28 are held by the teams that lose in the first 2 rounds in the inverse order of their record in the standings. To make matters more complicated, the Senators' pick is now the final pick in the first round. So every other pick for a team that makes the postseason is moved up 1 slot. The Stars finished with the 3rd best record in the regular season, behind only the Colorado Avalanche and the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes have already advanced to the Eastern Conference Final and will hold one of the final 4 picks from the first round. If the Avalanche don't blow a 3-1 lead, and we're recording before they play tonight, and advance to the Western Conference Final, then the Stars will be the team with the best record that didn't make the conference final, and that pick will be 27th overall. If the Wild come back and beat the Avalanche to reach the Western Conference Final, then the Avs will get the 27th pick, and the Rangers will get the 26th overall pick from Dallas. So we are looking at probably the 27th overall pick coming from the Dallas Stars. Kravtsov pick. Joe said that the Rangers picked Vitaly Kravtsov because of his KHL playoff performance. During the 2018 KHL playoffs, an 18-year-old Kravtsov put up 11 points in 16 games with Chelyabinsk Tractor, and as they beat. Charlie is doing this to me on purpose, so I have to pronounce Russian hockey team names, and frankly, I hate you, Charlie. I want you to know. Neftekemik, Nizkemsek. Boy, this is brutal. Salavet Yulavov Ufa. Boy, none of these are right. None of these are close to right. I am not up on my Russian. Before falling to Akbar's Kazan in the Eastern Conference Final. I don't believe that these are actually names of teams. I'm pretty sure he made these up. Those 11 points were good for 12th in the KHL postseason scoring that year. Wow. Is Hartford a desirable job? Joe asked if being the head coach of the Hartford Wolfpack is even a desirable job. Keegan said that is just one step away from being an NHL head coach. Since the Rangers moved their AHL affiliate to Hartford, following the NHL's decision to move out of a shopping mall in Connecticut, the Wolfpack have employed 7 different head coaches. They are E.J. McGuire, John Paddock, Ryan McGill, Ken Jernander, Keith McCambridge, Chris Knobloch, and the recently fired Grant Patolny. Of those, only Paddock, 2007 in Ottawa, and Knobloch, 2024 in Edmonton, would go on to be named the head coach of an NHL team. Successful coaches. Eric and Joe talked about how successful NHL coaches are mostly journeyman types. We're staring down the barrel of an Eastern Conference final featuring Rod Brendamore and Martin St. Louis as coaches, both of whom amassed over 1,000 points in their NHL career. Rick Tocchet, head coach of the Flyers team that was just bounced in the second round by Bryn Moore's Hurricanes, put up 952 career points. And finally, Gary Thorne. The discussion of the Mount Rushmore of broadcasters prompted Eric to talk of his love of Gary Thorne and how much better Thorne's call of Scott Brocious' home run in Game 5 of the 2001 World Series was than Joe Buck's. And Charlie includes the videos of the Joe Buck, the Gary Thorne call, and just for good measure, John Sterling's RIP to John Sterling. And that concludes the podcast on Budsman Report.
All right. Do we want to start with the 5th overall pick? Is that our move right now?
I think so. Yeah.
So this gets us to the conversation about the 5th overall pick. And I don't want to step on the toes of my Joe's reaction of the week too much. That's going to happen go up on Friday. But I don't see any world in which the Rangers have a trade partner to get a better draft pick than San Jose at 2. Chicago is probably looking for a forward. There's a family connection with Caleb Malhotra at 3 that probably stops him from falling any further than that. Before, if the Rangers had sat at 4, I do think a forward's going to be available at 4. I just have a feeling something weird is going to happen. Now, it's entirely possible that they go McKenna, Stenberg, and Malhotra, and then there's a defenseman that comes off the board, probably Chase Reed, right, that goes in, and it's just the way that it's going to play out. One of the things that I want to just clarify about the conversation that we were having last week, there were reports that the Rangers were very interested in Malhotra. Now, I am an enormous best player available, don't draft for need guy. I don't think it makes sense in many circumstances outside of one, which happens to be San Jose. The Rangers farm system is so bare and they are so bad at the big club that the Rangers don't have a choice but to actually draft the best player available wherever that may be. So one of the things that I think the Rangers are just going to have to try to do is figure out if there is a Braden Schneider package that works with San Jose to get that 2nd overall pick from them. Now, the exception here to my best player available is, in fact, San Jose, which is San Jose really doesn't need another forward. And to the point that you were making, Eric, yeah, they could draft Chase Reed, or they can make the trade with the Rangers for, say, Braden Schneider, that 1st overall pick, which is going to be 5th overall, and whatever, another piece, call it Adam Edstrom, and take the risk that you're not going to get Reed, but you are going to get probably one of, Verhoeff or Carels, right, is who we think is going to be available there, especially with the forwards that go. So to the point that you're making, Eric, is it worth the Rangers, or is it worth San Jose drafting Reed at 2nd overall, or do they instead say, you know what, we'll take Schneider, who we could plug in right now, take another defenseman who honestly might be just as good and not, waste, quote unquote, a 2nd overall pick?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Rangers to explore that trade up. The Rangers have something that in Braden Schneider that San Jose has been interested in. They have a high enough pick that you're right, they may not get Chase Reed, but you're going to have your choice of Carls or Verhoeff or Smits as a defenseman, I think, as well. So there are a number of well-ranked defensemen that should be available at 5. Especially if you're kind of just more dedicated to the idea of getting a defenseman. I agree with you. I'm generally in favor of take the best player available, but lucking into that 2nd overall pick the way that San Jose did, they're not a team that needs everything. Like, they have a lot of high-end forwards. They have a lot of talent up front. They need to improve on their defense. Getting a guy through the draft, as well as getting a guy like Braden Schneider, is improving their defense, or at least theoretically it is. I imagine maybe they can fix Braden Schneider. Does not work, but could be fun to fix kind of situation for Braden Schneider there. I think it makes a lot of sense. It just makes sense for San Jose to explore it, whether it is with 3, 4, or 5, because if they don't want Stenberg, you have the ability to extract extra value out of that team, get the guy or one of the guys that you want in the process there. So I don't know why you wouldn't do that if you're San Jose. So I think there's a real plausibility to it. My bias militates towards it's just not going to happen. And, For that reason, I'm not planning on it, but I think there's a real logic and plausibility to it. And Drury, given the relationship he's already had with Mike Grier, should be on the phone with him on a regular basis, trying to figure out what would be necessary to get that pick, because Stenberg is more of what the Rangers, not that they don't need defense. And I think we've all noted this in that roundtable we did. They need prospects all across the board in pretty much every position. But the needs for a needle moving forward are just, I think, more pronounced than they are for another high end defenseman.
Yeah, I don't think the Rangers are in a bad position here, one way or another. I really don't. I think that the Rangers are, no matter what happens, whether they're able to trade with San Jose or they make a trade with no one, and then they're just drafting at, fifth overall. There are plenty of options there for the Rangers that are going to be fine because, again, the Rangers have no prospects outside of Gabe Perreault and outside of Scott Morrow, who I don't even know if we would consider a prospect. There's nothing. So yeah. So to be honest, I don't think there's a bad option here for the Rangers. I think there's a better option. A better option would be them getting a second overall pick and being able to take a forward. The Rangers cupboard is so bare from a prospect perspective. Any player that they take at fifth overall is going to be fine, whether it's a defenseman or otherwise. So I just want to make sure that when we're talking about these different options, we are just saying what we hope will happen in the event of the Rangers getting able to get that second overall pick. Now, your point, Eric, is a good one. These trades don't happen very often, if ever. San Jose is in a sort of unique situation where they really don't need a forward right now, and forwards are at the premium at this point in the draft. So it's possible that they're more amicable to this than most teams would be. But if it doesn't happen and the Rangers don't get don't get the second overall pick, who cares? They need all the help they can get regardless. So what does it matter?
It's more than just that they don't need a forward. It's that they don't need a forward, and the guy who is the consensus second overall pick is a forward. If this were a situation where you had 3 or 4 guys in that top tier, and you could argue it any which way that, if, let's say, Chase Reed was considered by just across the board, in a tier with Gavin McKenna and Ivar Stenberg, it's a little more justifiable to just do the Chase Reed no matter what, to take your guy and let Stenberg fall. But because that's not the case, and because everybody knows that, there is an opportunity to extract value in exchange for that pick. If you'd be willing to take him, that, like, the threat of doing it has to be there too. You'd be willing to do it, but you're willing to move down and take somebody else. So I just think it makes a lot of sense. I don't know that it will happen, but it makes a lot of sense. I want to talk about one other player because this came up in the roundtable. There were a couple of people, Snark was one, Roberto was one, who are very enthusiastic about Viggo Björck. And I am not a big prospect guy. I am not in a position to tell you that, no, it makes total sense. The Rangers should absolutely go for a guy like Björck. He does seem to have a tremendous amount of offensive upside. I don't know. Not only do I think that they should do it, but I certainly don't think that they would do it. And not for necessarily the reasons that people think. So Björck is undersized. I think he's 5'11" is what he's listed at. The Rangers, I think, are willing to take a guy like that who is undersized.
They took
like
Perreault.
They did with Gabe Perreault, right? So, but the thing was, Perreault fell into their lap. I think the only way that they are taking a guy like Viggo Björck is if he somehow falls to the end of the first round. From what I have seen, where Björck is being ranked by prospect experts, taking him at 5 is a reach. It's going a little off the board, which is not to say that Snark and Roberto are wrong, that he is the guy that they should take in that position. I just don't know if the Rangers and Chris Drury are going to go that far off the board and reach at this point in time. I think they're going to take what is more of a sure thing at 5 overall. And if something crazy happens and they can get him later in the first round, that's great. I just really don't see that happening, nor do I necessarily think I see the case for it as much as Roberto and Snark do.
I also think it's worth noting that no one, even people who don't look at like specific teams and who they would draft and who they're predisposed to, has him fifth overall.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
the forward drop off, him and Lawrence sort of fall into that next category of like when the run of defensemen ends. Here, I'm telling you what's going to happen in the draft. McKenna's going to probably go first overall. Once McKenna, Stenberg, and Malhotra are off the board. That may be 1, 2, 3. That may be 1, 2, or maybe 1,
4.
3, 4, whatever it is. The minute that happens, there's going to be a run on defensemen because those are the next players in that tier. So what I'm thinking you're going to get to 8 or 9 at least before the next forward comes off the board. If the Rangers were drafting 9th overall, I'd be all about what is it, Bjork? The
Viggo
J
Björck.
throws
Yeah.
me off there. So, like, as soon if you're there, that's a really good pick to make. But this is a classic Eric Cohn, like, is ought distinction. What the Rangers ought to do and what they will do are two different things.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would be particularly interested in him at 9th overall even, but they're not drafting 9th overall. They're drafting 5th overall. So it just is what it is.
Based on the way
I
that
don't
it
see that
looks
happening.
based on the way it looks like it's gonna shake out, it looks like you're probably if you're 9th overall, you're probably looking at a forward and you're looking at Tynan Lawrence, right? Like, that is I just don't see Bjork going that high based on what I have read. Again, not a super big prospect guy, but based on what I have read, I just don't see it. So, that's that and the admonition against Keaton Verhoeff that I made at the top of the show. Those are the two really, that's the only one that I don't wanna see the Rangers take with 5. Like, I don't even know that I wouldn't be out of my mind if they took Viggo Bjorck at 5. The people that I trust seem to like him and think he has a ton of just incredible offensive upside. I think that's fantastic. Really, Veerhoff is the only guy that I don't want, and it's not necessarily because I don't believe in him. It's because I just don't want to have to endure the Rangers took another guy who can't skate. Don't they just love guys who can't skate? I just don't. I don't need that in my life.
Yeah, Bjork at 5 would be fine from like a if you're taking the upside and the swing on talent, totally fine.
Yeah.
I just don't think the Rangers will do it. Now, him over one of the other 3 forwards, I think would be shocking, but this is where the Chris Drury piece is gonna come in, which is the Schneider is a rare case where I think Ranger fans actually undervalue him versus where he's valued in the league. And that to me means there might be a little bit more smoke there where I genuinely
Mhm.
don't think San Jose would be laughing if the Rangers offered the 5th Schneider at plus a depth piece like Brett Berard, let's say, for the 2nd overall pick. I don't think that's something that's like oh, the Rangers are going to trade Matt Rempe for, Connor McDavid. That's not what we're talking
Right.
about here. But the one thing that scares me, and again, I don't want to step on the toes of my story coming out on Friday, but I'll say it here. If Chicago decides they want that 2nd overall pick, they're probably getting it. They have more things to trade. They have more things to give San Jose. I think the question is going to come down to, does Chicago think the Rangers could actually pull this off? And are they would that even the threat of it be enough of an instigating event to make them go out and do something like that where I see things sitting, they may actually have one of these guys fall into their lap anyway. And it may be Stenberg is the scariest part of the whole thing. Because I really
That's
don't see
it,
Vancouver
it's not
passing on
impossible.
Malhotra.
Yeah, it really is not impossible. If I am Mike Grier, I'm calling Vancouver, I am calling Chicago, and I am calling the Rangers, and I'm saying, how badly do you want the 2nd overall pick? I think the thing the Rangers would have going for them in that scenario is exactly what you said, that I don't know that I don't know that Chicago is that eager to move up into that spot, like, based on what their needs are. And I don't know that Vancouver is that eager to move up into that spot because I think they would be comfortable taking what they expect to be available to them at that position and not wanting to have to give up the extra assets in order to get that. And you also have them kind of playing off of each other where it's like you have to wonder if you're Chicago is like, well, I mean, am I even going to have a chance at Stenberg there. I don't know. It's weird. I really this draft is more uncertain than I think most of the ones that we've seen recently, and the fact that San Jose has the possibility of trading down more plausibly than other teams have in the past, I think really throws a curveball into all this.
There's absolutely no reason for Vancouver to trade the third overall pick. None. Because no matter what happens, one of the forwards is going to fall to them. If the worst case scenario happens and McKenna and Stenberg go 1-2, Malhotra's falling to 3. If somebody takes Malhotra at 1-2, McKenna or Stenberg is falling to 3. So Vancouver, the threat is Chicago. From what I've heard from prospect people, there is a sense, or some Chicago people, I should say, not necessarily prospect people. There is a sense that Chicago wants a dynamic forward to pair with Connor Bedard. And that I
Makes
think
sense.
is the fear from a Rangers perspective, that they're going to go in and say, hey, this is something we need to do. And,
Yeah.
let's figure it out. So that, I think, probably concludes everything we need to talk about with the 5th overall pick, at least at this stage. We'll see if anything else comes of it. Eric, we need to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, Benoit Allaire, who is officially retiring. I think his last day is what, June 1st, they said?
Yeah, I think that's right. Or maybe like up until the draft. I think that's right.
So what are your thoughts here? This is I would say groundbreaking news.
Send him directly to the Hall of Fame. That's my first thought. Like what Benoit Allaire has done in the realm of goalie coaching is truly remarkable. This is a guy who we talk about this all the time, and we're talking about Benoit Allaire even when we're not talking about it, right? So the reality is that Henrik Lundqvist was just one of the most overlooked goaltending prospects in the history of the National Hockey League. For him to go as late in the draft as he went, and for him to be as good of a goaltender as he was. Part of that was the development of Henrik Lundqvist, which is owed a lot to Benoit Allaire. The consistency that the Rangers have had in net in many ways is owed not just to the raw talent of guys like Lundqvist and Igor Shesterkin, but to the ability of Benoit Allaire to get the best out of those players. And where I think you really see the product of Benoit Allaire's work is what the Rangers have had consistently in terms of backup goaltending, while they have had these clear number one starters in Henrik Lundqvist's case, a Hall of Famer, in Igor Shesterkin's case, an all-star caliber goaltender, is the backup goaltending that they have had. Now, Jonathan Quick recently obviously is an exception in the sense that he is the greatest American-born goaltender of all time. But, go back through the litany of backup goaltenders
That's what I was going to
that
say.
you have had behind mostly Henrik Lundqvist, from Cam Talbot, a guy coming out of Alabama, Birmingham, who was a great backup and has gone on to have a long career as a starter in the National Hockey League. You had Antti Ranta. You even who was the guy? Oleg Pavlik from the Jets. Guys who had not been consistent in their careers prior to coming to New York, got better and got more consistent in those backup roles. Antti Ranta is another example of that. Thanks to the work of Benoit Allaire. So I don't know. We talk about goalies being voodoo and the kind of voodoo magic that all of it is. I mean, here you have like Benoit Allaire as some kind of strange shaman with the ability that he has to work with those goaltenders to make them the best that they possibly can be. It's alarming in the sense of this is, been a guy who's just been a mainstay fixture for the Rangers for so long that you got to worry a little bit when he's leaving. But, one of the important things for any kind of an organization is the ability of the person who is in a role like that to impart the wisdom of how to do the job to people who he works with. And you hope that some of that magic has rubbed off on the people that Allaire has worked with who are taking over for him in this position. That transition already started this past season, where he was not the goaltending coach. He was just overseeing goaltending for the Rangers and now officially retiring. You hope that some of that rubs off and stays there. But, it's a huge loss in that the Rangers always had something that nobody else in the National Hockey League had, which was this incredible goaltending guru in Benoit Allaire. And send him straight to the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be there for the work that he has done, for getting the careers out of some of those guys that he did, not only on the low end, but also the high end. It really is just a remarkable career for Benoit Allaire, and we wish him the best in retirement.
Benoit Allaire goes straight to Valhalla. That's just how that works. He just goes right there. I made a comment that like I was already panicking, which was half tongue in cheek. And somebody was like, "Oh yeah, things have been really bad since he did his, not part of the day to day." And it's like, guys, just kind of need you to understand something. Igor Shesterkin's already Igor Shesterkin. Like Allaire, he's already worked his magic there. You're gonna feel this after the fact. You may get a little reprieve with Guerin if he actually turns into, what we hope he will. This, you're going to feel in 5 years. You're going to feel this in 6 years. You're going to feel this in 8 years. And to your point, Eric, hopefully he has imparted his wisdom. But, the chances of the Rangers going from Lundqvist to Shesterkin and then from Allaire to like baby Allaire, I just don't think are possible. There was a story that came out years ago. I want to say it was like 10 years ago. Maybe it was not that long. I think it was Elliot Friedman who reported that Arizona was trying to lure him away and the Rangers basically made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. I can only imagine that Allaire is making more money than whatever amount of money you told me Benoit Allaire was being paid, I would believe you.
Yes.
If you told me the Rangers were paying him $10 million a year, I would believe you. I would just believe you.
Yeah, pay him more.
He deserves it. So, yeah, Godspeed, my friend. Congratulations. It's a shame. How long has he been with the Rangers? He doesn't have a Stanley Cup ring from '94, correct?
I'm pretty sure no, but he's been there quite a while.
I don't think he does.
He has been there since. Oh no, he definitely. No, wait, he came over in 04-05 from the Phoenix Coyotes. Well, I don't think I knew that.
Do we put his? His name in the rafters? Is there even a way to do that?
Yeah, can we put his starter jacket in the rafters? Can we hoist that up there? Is that possible?
Just his face, like a fat head that goes up there that
I'm in favor.
Whatever. Yeah, I think that's totally fine.
I'm in favor.
Let's do it. Yeah. There's no reason not to. But Godspeed, my friend. Again, this will be an I told you so when Eric and I are doing this podcast in 10 years. This will be where we come back and we're like, hey, remember that thing we were talking about with Allaire? Yeah, that's what we were talking about now.
That's what we know. Yeah.
Eric may put a note into the top if he doesn't. I'm having insane connection issues, so I apologize if this is a little jumpy. Eric, why don't we just roll to questions because we've basically talked about like the big topics while things are working in somewhat order, and we'll just go from there.
We'll speed run these as best we can, so apologize if we give short shrift to any of them. Our own Chris Feldman, if the goal really is to retool and compete as soon as possible, should the Rangers just pick Carels and throw the bag at Rasmus Andersson and Mario Ferraro? That gives you a decor of Gavrikov Fox, Ferraro Anderson, Carels Schneider. That's a blue line that can get you through a contention window, right?
I think it ignores the possibility of what you might bring back with Vincent Trocheck. That's the other piece that we haven't really talked about here. And my argument is that if the Rangers have the capability of trading Schneider and whatever it is, the second overall pick, and let's say Edstrom or Berard, whatever San Jose wants, for the second overall pick, and you get a forward, you now know that like you've either created space for Vincent Iorio and/or Scott Morrow, or you now know that you need to sort of prioritize something younger on that side of the ice, which would be defense for Vincent Trocheck. So I don't. There is a path where the Rangers do the right thing at 5 overall, and it's a defenseman, and it's fine, and everyone's happy. I just don't think there's no reason to accelerate this process. It doesn't. What does it get? What do you gain?
Domi versus Probert. Speaking of, so the Wild are a game away from elimination. They have given up 15 power play goals in 10 games and are under 50% on faceoffs. Think a guy like Trocheck could have helped their cause a little?
This is exactly what we talked about. Another quick I told you so. Hopefully they lose, and then it really hammers it home. You need this, Bill Guerin. There's no reason for you not to have Vincent Trocheck.
Bill Guerin, Mr. Nominated for GM of the Year, Bill Guerin, who did not get his team what it needed at the deadline. Bill Guerin. Just keep that in mind.
This would be a telling. They get their asses handed to them by Colorado. Who can blame them? Colorado's a fucking wagon. But
yeah,
this would be the type of thing that may work out in the Rangers' favor, where Guerin looks around and is like, you know what? We probably do need literally a 1-2-3 punch down the lineup that can hang with a team like that. And he just saw Vincent Trocheck and JT Miller have the greatest 5-on-3 penalty kill of all time to win him a gold medal that he actually doesn't get, as you pointed out. So that kind of sucks for him, but fuck it. Trade for Vincent Trocheck, my friend.
Statesboro Blueshirt CT. Last pod, I stopped listening when Joe said that the draft lottery was fixed. I since heard a couple of other semi-credible sources say the same thing, all sounding very serious. Are there people out there that really think the league fixed the lottery? Is there any evidence? Don't get me wrong, I've seen auditors get bought, even the big ones, especially the big ones. But does anyone really think the league could do this every year and keep it quiet? I'll let Joe speak for himself there. This is mostly joking. I'm sure there are some people out there who really seriously think that this is all fixed in some way. I don't know if you've ever seen I know Joe hasn't, but if you're out there, if you've ever seen the movie Quiz Show, which is about the game show scandals of, I think, the 1950s. Good movie, but the amount of credibility damage that would do to an organization like the National Hockey League, if it was found out that it was being fixed like that, I think would just be enormous. So I don't believe it. And again, Joe, you can speak for yourself here, but I always took that to be just a very tongue-in-cheek. Of course, the Rangers are dropping because it's fixed, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, the Maple Leafs, me saying the lottery was rigged was a joke and tongue-in-cheek. However, let's be clear that the Sidney Crosby lottery is pretty widely accepted to have been completely rigged by the NHL. That Mario Lemieux was threatening to move the team, and then all of a sudden he wins the draft lottery in a lockout year. I'm sorry. There's not fucking suspicion there. I apologize. But no, I could also believe that maybe last year had a little bit, whatever. But yes, it was tongue-in-cheek. I do not actually think there would be no reason for the NHL to rig the lottery to Toronto unless they knew that Matthews was going to leave and they were concerned. But there's no reason to rig the lottery for the Rangers. The Rangers are always going to be a big market team. Always. The Islanders, on the other hand,
here is
no,
the thing.
So.
Yeah. Here is the thing. And this is the problem with pretty much all conspiracy theories in my book, which is way too many people would be able to have some knowledge in order for the NHL to fix it like this. And when it comes to the political realm, I remind you, the 1990s, nobody could keep it quiet that the president was getting Hummers from an intern under the Oval Office desk. And yet we are supposed to believe that thousands upon thousands of people have kept it concealed who really killed JFK, or that a UFO crashed in Roswell, Mexico. It defies plausibility. And for the same reason, it defies plausibility that the NHL could fix this without it being leaked, without it being reported to somebody. It would be the biggest story of somebody's career if they could report out that the NHL had actually fixed the lottery for somebody to get a certain pick. It strains credulity. It's jokes that we make because it's just unfortunate that the Rangers dropped and Toronto ends up in the number 1 spot. That's what it is.
Yeah, this is why I laugh when people are like, "Oh, go ahead, that's fine."
Cronus. With us picking 5 in the draft and the free agent market being pretty empty and us not having a lot of assets, when you realistically see this team getting when do you realistically see this team getting a top 6 with a serious scoring potential? It feels like now that we've missed out on McKenna or Stenberg, again, possibly, we don't really have the possibility for this to be a retool. There's no help coming before Mika and Miller have hung up their skates.
Well, that's not true, because you have Matthews, McDavid coming off into free agency in 2 years. Mm-hmm. So that's the timeline right there. Is 2 years from now, UFA we're playing the game again where we're like begging one of those guys to come to New York. I think that might be a little bit more plausible these days with everything that's going on in Edmonton. If you haven't seen, you should probably look at some of that. Our boy Chuck Knobloch, Chris Knobloch is probably getting his ass fired.
Yep.
But that's the closest that it's going to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you that the target is still McDavid. The target is still Matthews in a couple of years, or maybe even less, depending on how things shake out in Toronto. Certainly, things are weird up there, so who knows how that is going to transpire. Yeah, the thing that I always just want to say in these situations is straight line projections are almost always wrong. You just cannot draw a straight line forward from here and say like, oh, there's nobody coming. You just do not know how things are going to change. So, and you also don't know. I mean, the Rangers, not different from the Islanders last year. Say the Rangers finish, in the bottom of the top 10 in terms of the draft picks and win the lottery and move all the way up. Again, you do not know. So you just kind of have to wait and see. We've always been a little dubious on the retool versus rebuild. It's very hard to see how some of that is going to shake out. Although I think there's a little reason to believe, based on how you saw the Rangers play at the end of last year, that they were not as bad at the end of last year as they were at the beginning of last season. So there's a little improvement there that you can look to. They're going to get a top 5 pick in this draft. They're going to have Liam Greentree. They're going to have Brody Lamb. These are not the high-end forwards you need, but these are guys who can fill out your middle six. We'll have to just wait and see. But the eyes are towards 2 years from now, if and up until there's trades for Matthews or McDavid and or extension signed for Matthews and McDavid. That's what we all have to wait for now.
Agreed.
84 Jorts. So to post last week about our 5th overall pick, I jokingly commented that we should trade it and our 27th to St. Louis for their 11th and 15th. Joe and others looked into it and said that idea had some merit. Would you make that trade? Who would you look to get with those picks to make the trade worth it?
I wouldn't make the trade. Upon research, the 5th overall pick is worth more than both the 11th and the 15th?
11th and 15th.
And that's like there's like a pick, not tracker, like a pick value tracker, if you will. There's so much more value in the 5th overall pick than the 11th in this model. Now, I responded to that in the story. Somebody pointed out that they did like the rundown of number of 5th overall picks that have played an X amount of games in the NHL and number of 11th overall picks that have played an X amount of games. And they're pretty similar, like starkly so, but in the basis of that chart that you guys have seen, that's like NHL probability, and at 1st overall, it's all the way at the top, and then it like immediately goes down as it goes. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I think that's right. State of hockey. Seeing how the playoffs have played out thus far, does it make you reevaluate the Rangers' needs or potential targets this offseason?
No, because what's changed? What have you learned about other teams that like the Rangers are just a bad hockey team? They don't have enough high-end talent. They're too reliant on their goaltender. They have a very good coach with a system in place and doesn't really have the players to fit that system. Nothing that happens here is going to make me think that like nothing could happen that would lead me to believe that this is that like there's anything for the Rangers to learn. They have so many problems. They shouldn't even be watching the playoffs because this is a whole nother language for them. Playoff teams are speaking Chinese. The Rangers are like hammering rocks together to try to create fire. We're doing 2 different things here.
I agree. I don't think there's anything hugely instructive that I have learned other than that when you have a goaltender playing well in Carolina, their system carries through in the playoffs. We will see what that looks like in the Eastern Conference Final, and or if they meet the other juggernaut of this postseason, the Colorado Avalanche, in the Stanley Cup Final, because as of right now, those 2 teams seem to be pretty much on a collision course. I don't know that I have any other major takeaways other than what we talked about before with Minnesota, that really you should have traded for Vincent Trocheck. You should have given up Yurov. Is that really too much of a price to pay in order to
win the
not
Stanley
have
Cup?
to have every power play converted against you? So Bill Guerin, just, keep that in mind.
Yeah, hope it was worth it
Keep
for
that in
you, you
mind.
piece of shit. I'm glad you
Yeah.
could have won the gold medal and the Stanley Cup in the same year.
Yeah. I was gonna say, enjoy the gold medal you don't technically have.
Well, not even technically, literally does not have a gold medal, correct?
Literally, he does not have a physical gold
Correct.
medal. He GM'd a team to a gold medal, but only the players get one.
Which, by the way, is bullshit, to be fair. Like, that is bullshit. No?
Maybe.
Well, I think it's bullshit.
Should like the gymnastics coach get a gold medal?
Yes, they're
if
the
one of
fucking
his
coach.
players win?
I'm sorry. Would Mike Sullivan not get a Stanley Cup ring?
The Olympics and professional sports are different.
I don't know if I agree with that. In the argument,
you don't agree that the
making,
Olympics and professional sports are different?
Yeah, because if you're playing a professional sport in the Olympics, there's sort of no reason why that wouldn't. I just don't know why it wouldn't count.
It's the Olympics. Only the athletes get rewarded.
Okay, well.
I'm going to skip some of Chip's prologue to just get to, what if Mike Grier came to you and said, I will give you the 2nd overall pick, the 20th overall pick, Michael Misa, and a secondary prospect for Adam Fox. Do you do the trade?
I'll be honest with you. This is one of Chip's better questions. I had to really, really think about this. And Derek, I think I'd do it. I get the 2nd overall, which guarantees me Stenberg or McKenna.
Yeah.
I keep my 5th overall.
Yeah.
That guarantees me Reed, Carls, whatever it is.
Reed.
Yep. If I want, I can package the 20th and the 27th, let's say, to get back into the teams, or take swings on high upside talent with both of them. And I am getting a 2nd overall pick a year ago or 2 years ago that I insert into my lineup right away. So I am now adding 2 top 6 forwards, theoretically, that are young into my lineup. I am resetting my timeline. I am probably focusing on trading Schneider and /or Trocheck for younger defensemen with more offensive upside. But I don't think there's any way you can't do this if you're the Rangers and it's presented to you.
I hate that. I think that you're right, that you got to do that deal. It sucks to move on from Adam Fox, but there's also, you start getting into what some people have been talking about, which is timeline concerns with guys like Adam Fox and how old they are going to be when the Rangers are a serious contender again. But this deal, and again, he likens it to the Quinn Hughes deal, which returned Marco Rossi, Zeev Buium, Liam Holmgren, and a 1st-round pick. It's not far off from that. It gets the Sharks something that they need, and just. Again, as much as like it would pain me, Joe, can you imagine Adam Fox feeding Macklin Celebrini on a power play? Holy shit.
Yeah, it would be you'd be doing Fox a favor in a large respect that he deserves.
Yeah.
But it's too tempting of an offer to pass up, in that Misa and the 2nd overall pick alone would make me think about it. Mm-hmm. Keeping the other, getting the 20th, I just think there's too much value there for where the Rangers are as an organization.
And how many needs
they have. You kind of solve 2 at once. You just gotta, you have to do it. I just don't see. And now, by the way, I'm the biggest Adam Fox defender there is. I will continue to be an Adam Fox defender. This is not a Adam Fox sucks, make this trade.
No, it's the opposite. It is Adam Fox is an incredibly valuable player. And what is really the reason that you had that warm up to answering the question there is because this fits the trade model that I talked about before, which is trades are supposed to be win-win. Both sides are supposed to get things that they need out of them. Like, you're not looking to fleece other general managers in that kind of way, really you're only looking at it from the, years beyond perspective where it's like, yeah, that really did not work out for one side. But at the time that the deal is happening, both sides need to think that they are winning. That really is a trade that makes it sound like it works for both teams and both teams are getting things that they need out of it. Both teams get better because of that deal. That's
Yeah,
a win-win.
the Rangers get worse right away, but they set themselves up to be better long term, which is the importance of it. Y- Again, this is not a shot at Adam Fox. We are very big Adam Fox defenders. This is not a devastating for the what would be the opposite of
Devastating for the haters.
but it's not a devastating for the haters.
Wonderful for the
Yeah,
haters.
this is not a wonderful for the haters situation. Like this is this is a just it makes sense for everybody. You elevate San Jose to a level where they probably have the most dangerous power play in the league, right? With Adam Fox, Malcolm Celebrini, with everything that they have that's going right for them. You reunite Adam Fox with Barclay Goodrow, who is the greatest leader of all time. And
Yes,
the
firmly
Rangers
established.
get a top 6 young forward that they insert right now in Misa. They have a second overall pick where they can draft another one of those players to partner with him. You also get to keep your 5th overall pick, which you are most likely using on a defenseman that will never replace Adam Fox. Let's just be clear, right? Like that would be irresponsible to assume that either Reed or Carls are going to replace him, but can maybe be a light version of him, which is a downgrade, to be fair. And then you get 2 late first round picks that you can utilize to really just take swings on talent.
Agreed.
You restock the prospect pool. You get a player to insert right away. If Stenberg's ready, you get 2 players to insert right away. And who cares? The Rangers are bad, so who cares?
Yeah. I have to say that trade proposal does not suck.
It does not suck. No, Chip did well with that one.
Yeah. Last question. Statesboro Blueshirt CT. To me, it feels like using the 5th pick on a player 2 to 3 years or more away is a rebuild, not a retool move. Do you guys agree? Maybe there are lots of other moves for immediate roster improvement except this pick, and maybe it makes sense. I know this is semantics between rebuild and retool, but it blurs further because most of us think a full rebuild is in order.
I don't think this is semantics, actually. I do think this is a valid point in the rebuild retool war that we're fighting. Now, Eric and I have been pretty clear that, like, no matter what side of the line you fall on, the Rangers are rebuilding. Like, they could say whatever they want, but they're rebuilding at this point.
Right.
The only team that really could do what you're referencing, which is like San Jose is in a position where drafting in the it makes sense for them to push off the 2nd overall pick to give them pieces for right now because they're expecting to be a playoff team next year. The Rangers are not in that boat regardless. So I think it's more important just to understand that if Chris Drury is looking to accelerate the timeline, the easiest way to do that and not break the mold is actually going to be to trade for the 2nd overall pick and get a guy that can step in this year. And that is a quote unquote retool, right? This retool move, I should say, in the sense that Stenberg is then there next year. Reed or Carls, I don't think are playing in the NHL next year, from what I understand. So, like, that is more of a rebuild than a retool. But the Rangers are doing both. So, what does it mean? Like, it's just not an easy formula for the Rangers.
Yeah. I think the answer to the question is the Rangers are rebuilding. It's just a question of how long the rebuild takes. And there are examples I think you can look at out in the history of the NHL where you have rebuilt in rather rapid fire succession and you have rebuilt over the course of a decade. There's just no guarantee how it's going to go. So it's hard to say. I don't think look, you got to do the best that you can with the cards that you were dealt, and the Rangers got dealt the 5th overall pick. And if it's a guy who is 2 or 3 years away, let's say 2 probably for those people that we've been talking about from playing in the NHL, then you take that. But you also, you have guys in Greentree, Lamb, guys like that who have a chance to make the team. There's going to be turnover on that roster. So it's just kind of hard to say. We just don't know. There's a bit of a semantics in the sense that, like, we're using rebuild and retool a little interchangeably. Retool, I think, just means we expect to do it quickly. You could expect to rebuild quickly. That's where it's kind of semantic to me. If everybody's going to be trying to do it as quickly as possible. Nobody's like, we're undergoing a 10-year long rebuild here. That's our plan. Everybody is trying to do it as quickly as they possibly and responsibly can. So I think the Rangers, if you could get a deal for the second overall pick, like we talked about at the top of the show, I think you do that deal based on what we think San Jose would want. If you can do something wild, like we just talked about that Chip proposed with Adam Fox, I think you absolutely consider that, because that changes all kinds of dynamics. And if none of that stuff happens, you take the best player that is available to you at that 5th overall pick. You take the best player that is available to you at the 27th overall pick, and you start developing the players that you're going to need to be successful in the near to midterm future.
I said it at the top. The Rangers are not in a position where they can be picky about who they take. They can't draft for position. They need to draft for best player available. Where they get a draft pick, be it where they landed in the draft lottery at 5th overall, or if they can move themselves up to 2nd overall, that will dictate who they pick, simply because that's where the players break out from a tier system. But
right,
the Rangers can't sit at 5. Now, I could be talked into the Rangers saying, you know what, we really want Lawrence. So what we're going to do, or Björck, which again, I don't think is going to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to trade back from 5, and maybe they trade, the 5th overall pick for this. Maybe it's just the 5th overall pick for, the 11th and the 15th and then a 2nd or something for St. Louis, right? Where they're losing value up front, but they're getting more cracks at the lottery ticket. I don't see that happening. I could be talked into that not being a stupid decision, but again, you're making that decision based on the fact that you would rather have a forward, but you're drafting somebody who's less ready than the guy you would take at like, you just need everything. The only thing you don't need necessarily is a goalie, and that'll change too.
You don't need a goalie, but I think it's I think it was Chris wrote that was like, you probably need to, somewhere around the 3rd round, take a goaltender, because you got to start restocking that cupboard too. So you need everything. Take something.
Yeah, you need everything. So if you put a gun to my head today, and listen, the draft is in 6 weeks, right? It's at the end of June, usually the week before free agency.
Beginning of July. Yeah.
If you put a gun to my
end of June, beginning of July.
If you put a gun to my head today, I would tell you that the New York Rangers are more than likely going to turn around, make the pick with the 5th overall pick. It is going to be Carels or, Verhoeff. I guess I could see them doing whatever. I'd prefer them not to your point, Eric, but let's call it Carels, and that's just going to be what it's going to be. That's my bet. I would not be astounded if the Rangers figured something out to get the 1st overall pick or the 2nd overall pick. I really wouldn't be, but I'm not, those trades happen so infrequently that it's hard for me to see a world where that's something that happens until it happens. But if there's a team for it to happen to, it's these two guys have a relationship. They backdoored the Barclay Goodrow situation. They were roommates in college, and there is a genuine, not pie in the sky path of logic that says, hey,
it's very plausible.
Yes, San Jose has a need. The Rangers have something to fill that need. You're not dropping from 2nd overall to even 8th or 9th. It's 5th overall. San Jose can take a defenseman, not the one that they want necessarily, but they can take a defenseman, and they're getting a defenseman in Braden Schneider who potentially has value across the league, and they would be able to insert right away and feel comfortable with. So,
that's all the questions.
Well then, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining. Sorry for some of the connection issues. Hopefully you guys don't realize it, but that's more of an apology to you, Eric, because you're the one that has to edit this monstrosity.
Yeah, I gotta fix this shit.
You gotta fix it. Leave 5 stars, Spotify. Leave 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, or however you listen to the show. BlueshirtBanter.com/BlueshirtBanter, Facebook.com/BlueshirtBanter, YouTube.com/BlueshirtBanter. Please tell your friends about us. It's fun. You can listen to us. You can leave comments. It's a good time. $85 a year gets you all your ad-free access to the New York Rangers on BlueShirtBanter.com. $40 a year is our community tier access. Tier, I should say. That is access to the Discord, and you can ask questions in the question thread that Eric put up. You get to hear your name, and he asks those questions on the show today. Eric, anything else you want to throw in here, or are we good to go?
Nothing else other than pray for me since I got to edit this thing now.
He's going to be fine. He's a champion. Thank you all. We will see you next week. Bye for now.